Let's rank all Conn Smythe Trophy winners from the year 2024 to 2010. The last 15 Conn Smythe winners, let's put together the best of the best in their playoff performance. Let's rank them 14 through number 1. You heard me right, 14 through 1 in a 15-player ranking. If you know, you know. Stay tuned, you'll find out why. And let's get it started with honor. So let's kick it off in 2013 with number 14 on this list, Patrick Kane. Don't get upset at the ranking on this list. They are all elite players, but Patrick Kane comes in last in Coach Ryan D's rankings, not because he wasn't a fantastic player, but that Chicago Blackhawks dynasty where they won 3 Stanley Cups from 2010 to 2024. This was their second one. He played 25 games, 9 goals, 10 assists, 19 points, not even quite a point per game, but that is because this Blackhawks team was so loaded and stacked. The legend of Kane and Toews together with partners on the back end like Duncan, Keith, Brent Seabrook, and the rest of the crew will go down in the annals of hockey history forever. But Patrick Kane just did the least amount, in my opinion, on this list compared to every other great player we have ahead of him. But Patrick Kane will go down as one of the greatest players to ever play the game, and arguably the greatest American player to ever play the game. His notable contribution was a beautiful hat trick in Game 5 in the Western Conference Championships in order to get them through. Don't get confused, the game-winning goal, that happened in 2010. Moving on to number 13, it's Jonathan Marchessault. Once again, love the player. Vegas finally cracks it, wins the Stanley Cup in 2023. He played 22 games, tied for the leader in points in the playoffs with 13 goals, 12 assists, 25 points, slightly over a point per game. Once again, this team was stacked. It was buzzing, hovering around the cup, and it still is today. The expansion team raises their first Stanley Cup, dispatching Winnipeg 4-1, the Edmonton Oilers 4-2, the Dallas Stars 4-2, and smoking the Florida Panthers 4-1 before the Florida dynasty would start to kick in. Look, I throw around this word dynasty a lot, but teams tend to win cups in bunches. None of them are probably dynasties, but it's a cool word to add in. So comment down below if you like it, if you agree they are or are not. And while you're down there, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, join our channel as we cover every game in the Stanley Cup Finals this year. Number 12 comes in with Justin Williams of the LA Kings. 2 Stanley Cups in the modern era, 26 games played, 25 points, 9 of those were goals, 16 were assists, absolute dominant winger. You can call him Mr. Game 7. This was probably the most great, arguably phenomenal Stanley Cup playoffs in the last 15 years. They beat the Sharks, a team that should have been a dynasty and never got over the hump. So if you think your team deserves it, remember, the Sharks buzzed around it for a decade, couldn't get it done because of a guy like Justin Williams and the crew. They beat them 4-3 in the second round. They beat another California rival, the Ducks, 4-3 as well, too, to become the Kings of California. And then they moved on to beat the Chicago Blackhawks, an absolutely deep, dynamic team, 4-3 as well. And then they smoked the Rangers in the finals, 4-1. Once again, just like the Sharks, the Rangers are a team that if you think your team deserves a cup or you're buzzing around a cup, point to the Sharks, point to the Rangers. They should have been there. They could have been there, but they just ran into better teams and their windows closed. Number 11 is 2020, and it is Victor Hedman. This might upset the first amount of people on this list. Snub. Go down below. Let me know your favorite Lightning player got snubbed. 25 games, 10 goals, 12 assists, 22 points. Dominant defenseman in the NHL. He has the most goals for any defenseman on this list since 1994. That's quite the accomplishment. He logged big minutes. But there are other defensemen coming up on this list, and ironically, he actually logged less minutes than those guys, if you can believe it, at 26 minutes, 41 seconds average time on ice. Monstrous game eater there, period and a quarter. Tampa Bay beat the Columbus Blue Jackets 4-1. They beat the Boston Bruins 4-1. They beat the New York Islanders 4-1, and they beat the Dallas Stars 4-2. This was a COVID year. This was a weird season. These are shortened seasons, so I do think that takes a little bit away. There's nothing Hedman or the Lightning can do. You can't take away a win, but it does put a weird little asterisk on it when it isn't 82 games played in the regular season. Because, well, at the end of the day, when you change timing, every factor matters. But still, an absolute dominant defenseman, good enough for number 11. Number 10 is going to be a favorite for some people on this list. It is Ryan O'Reilly. He embodies everything I think an NHL fan looks at for a team captain, for a two-way player, for an offensive powerhouse, a goal scorer, an enforcer, a leader. He has it all, and he took his team on the Cinderella run of a lifetime. Him and Jordan Binnington absolutely led those Blues to the 2019 Stanley Cup. In 26 games, he got 23 points, 8 goals, and 15 assists. They beat the Winnipeg Jets. They made it to the conference finals last year. The Blues dispatched them like they were nothing, 4-2. 4-3 against Dallas, this close to being eliminated. Dallas, another team on this list, like New York and San Jose, that has been hovering the drain that is the Stanley Cup, but can't quite get over the edge because of better teams. They beat, you know it, the San Jose Sharks 4-2, and then they beat the Boston Bruins 4-3. The Bruins could add 3 cups, but they ran into 2 powerhouses from the West. They only have 1 in the last 15 years, and that is because of a guy named Ryan O'Reilly. And frankly, how can you not like this guy? He absolutely embodies what every team thinks they should have and can pick up. And when your team is eliminated from the playoffs, what's the first thing people say about players that can't win cups? They're soft. It's the easiest answer to put behind saying, I don't like that player's game. Well, O'Reilly is anything but soft. He's a winner. People are going to think he's too far down this list because of what he did for St. Louis in that Cinderella run. But frankly, I do think there are 9 players better than him on it. Number 9 is Tim Thomas. This guy's an absolute animal. He is chaos in the net. This guy in 2011 was a big reason the Bruins won one of their cups. Like I said, they could have had 3, but they had 1, and that's because Timmy Thomas was in net, 25 games played, 16 wins, 9 losses. He had a Game 7 shutout against the Vancouver Canucks in order to take this one home. The Canucks were up 2-0. Everybody remembers Tim Thomas hitting a Sidney. I didn't even know a goalie was allowed to hit people. They can't get hit, but apparently they can give hits, or maybe that's just playoff hockey. He had a .940 save percentage, a 1.98 goals against average. This team was loaded with the likes of Zdeno Chara, Patrice Bergeron, and many more. It is hallmarked to me forever in the back of my brain as the one team that broke the mold, because they did not score a power play goal until the finals, and you need a humming power play to win. The Boston Bruins are the one exception. They traded and picked up Thomas Caberlet from the Maple Leafs. He was questionable at best, but kept eating ice time. The Bruins made mistakes. Tim Thomas covered him up. They ended up winning a cup. They were a very deep team. That's why he's number 9. But take a look, because there's a couple other great goalies coming up. 2021, Andrei Vasilevskiy. The 2 Lightning players aren't as high as you'd like them. It was a deep, deep team, but it was a weird time. This is one of the best goalies in the NHL, though, today. So, of course, he has a Conn Smythe championship under his name. 22 games played, 16 wins, 7 losses, 5 shutouts. Unbelievable job. 5 shutouts with a .937 save percentage and a 1.90 goals against average. Any team is going to have a great chance to win the Stanley Cup when you've got a mountain of a man in net like Andrei Vasilevskiy. They beat their rivals, the Florida Panthers, 4-2 in the first round. They smoked the Carolina Hurricanes 4-1. They crossed over to play the New York Islanders at that point, because this was that short and weird COVID year. And then they beat the Montreal Canadiens, the Western Conference Montreal Canadian champions, even though they're from the East, in the finals, 4-1. These guys cruise. They'll forever go down as one of the best teams in history. It's just too bad we'll never get the opportunity to have seen them at their best in a full normal season, but you'll never take away those cups, and you can't take away Vasilevskiy's accolades. Alexander Ovechkin comes in at number 7. Why? Because he scored goals and finally got his team over the hump. This was where we saw Alexander Ovechkin enter legendary status. You need a cup in order to do it. Just ask Connor McDavid how it feels to not have one and have everybody comparing you against the greats. It dogged Ovechkin for his entire career until 2018. You can score all the goals you want, but if you do not have a Stanley Cup and you can't win it with the team you were drafted to, what are you doing? He comes in at number 7 because through 24 games, he had 15 goals. That's the leading goal scorer in the last 15 years to win a Conn Smythe. He had 12 assists, 27 points. We all know how important the Great 8 was to Washington's success and continues to be to Washington's success. You can never take away the fact that goals are the most important thing in the NHL, and that's what Ovechkin does the best. But at this point in his career, he learned to play two-way hockey. He elevated himself as a leader under Barry Trotz with this team. It was a deep Capitals team, but Ovechkin was the reason they ended up taking the cup, along with a million other supporting pieces, including the coach. But you can't take it away from the captain. They dispatched the Columbus Blue Jackets 4-2. Then they beat their rivals, the Pittsburgh Penguins, 4-2. The Tampa Bay Lightning were knocking on the door. They lost in a 7-game series to the Washington Capitals, but they would go on to have a dynasty of their own. And then they smoked the Vegas Golden Knights 4-1 on Vegas's Cinderella inaugural year. What a year for Ovechkin, number 7 on this list. Now we go back as far as we can on this list to number 6, Jonathan Toews in 2010. Captain Serious. This starts the Chicago Blackhawks dynasty. They were knocking on the door before 2010, and he becomes the second youngest captain in NHL history to raise the Stanley Cup. 1 year, slightly 1 year or a couple months older than Sidney Crosby, because of course he does. This team was absolutely loaded, but you do not win 3 Stanley Cups, and you do not win 2010 without Jonathan Toews and his leadership. He is known as one of the greatest captains in NHL history. 22 games played, 7 goals, 22 assists, 29 points. This is when he cemented, and we started saying the words repeatedly in hockey. Big time players make big time plays in big time games. Jonathan Toews was never known to lead the NHL in any stat category points-wise, but when the bright light shone, when the playoffs were there, Captain Serious Jonathan Toews would score the biggest goals, make the biggest plays, the biggest defensive efforts of anyone on this list. You will not change my mind. It is good enough for him to come in at number 6. He led this Blackhawks team through the Nashville Predators. Then he led them through the Vancouver Canucks, then the San Jose Sharks. It always comes back to the Sharks. And then they ended up beating the Philadelphia Flyers. These guys were on an absolute tear. They remained on a tear. His career got cut short. Maybe he comes back a little bit later. But there was a time, because of his 3 Stanley Cups starting in 2010, that the debate was Crosby or Toews. Who is the best player in the NHL? I think Sid the Kid put that one to bed. But Jonathan Toews will forever go down as one of the greats in the NHL and one of the all-time Canadian greats and Conn Smythe winners. Number 5 is Sidney Crosby and Sidney Crosby, 2017 and 2016. And guess what? He joins only 2 players ever in Conn Smythe Trophy history to win it back-to-back. He joins former Pittsburgh Penguins captain and legend Mario Lemieux, 91 and 92. He got his in 16 and 17. Both won back-to-back Stanley Cups. Both, in my opinion, are on my Mount Rushmore of hockey. Some of the greatest players to ever play. He also joins another gentleman, parents. That's all. No Gretzky, no Ovechkin, nobody else. Just these 3 win back-to-back Conn Smythe trophies for their team. He played 48 games in both of those playoffs. He scored 14 goals, 32 assists, for 46 points, and you might be asking yourself, if you're younger or didn't watch these series or just can't remember, that's a low point total for a guy ranked so high. Well, his 2-way play and leadership goes uncontested to this day. This man has so many records, it's starting to make people's heads spin. The criticality of Sidney Crosby and the game of hockey can only be rivaled by a few players, Lemieux being one, Gretzky being another. This guy continues to be one of the best in the world to ever do it. And you know what? If you have him as number 1 of all time, I can't argue you. Even over Gretzky. It's that ludicrous that you could have Orr, Gretzky, Howe, Lemieux, Crosby. And if you pick Crosby, I'd be just fine with your choice. I fully understand it. He led his team like no one else has led a team. And it will be a long time, I think, before we see another captain like Sidney Crosby. This guy is an animal. When he has a weakness in his game, he fixes it. When he has any slight amount of pressure, he rises to that level. Sidney Crosby is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Sidney Crosby is Team Canada. He is just that good, which is why he comes in at number 5. In 2017, they went ahead and beat the Columbus Blue Jackets 4-1. They beat their rivals, Alexander Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals, 4-3. Will Ovi ever win a cup? Well, he did it the next year. They went ahead and beat the Ottawa Senators, crushing Canada's hopes one more time. And then he goes on to beat Nashville 4-2. Ottawa and Nashville joined the other teams we were talking about, the New York Rangers, the San Jose Sharks, teams that can't get over the hump. Ottawa and Nashville had their windows as well too. So once again, nothing is deserved, especially with dynasties like these in the NHL. In 2016, they beat the New York Rangers because, of course, they did. They beat the Washington Capitals in the second round because, of course, they did. And they derailed the Tampa Bay Lightning in the conference finals in 2016. But Tampa Bay would eventually get theirs. Number 4 is Cale Makar. Now, after everything I said about Crosby, how can you put anybody above him, especially one defenseman here? Well, in 2022, Cale Makar played 20 games. He averaged over 28 minutes of ice time in the entire playoffs, which is insane. He had 8 goals, 21 assists, 29 points. Let that sink in. 29 points in 20 games. This is a defenseman, and this is a two-way defenseman that is just as good at taking the puck away from you as he is scoring. You can have a 2-on-1 against this guy. He can turn it around, put the puck in the back of your net, even though he should have been burnt on that 2-on-1. That's how good Cale Makar is. And like Sidney Crosby, who joins Lemieux and Parent, he joins Orr and Lidstrom. You know those names. 2 of the greatest defensemen to ever do it, as the only player to win the Norris and the Conn Smythe in the same year. There's 3 guys. So when we're talking about elite defensemen, when we're talking about the fact that you can't replace a number 1 defenseman, what they do for your team is absolutely critical, arguably the best, most important position in hockey. When you're in the company of Nick Lidstrom and Bobby Orr, that is worth something. When you put up 29 points, that is worth something, and they win the Stanley Cup. They dispatch the Nashville Predators 4-0. They cruise through St. Louis 4-2. They smoke the Oilers 4-0, and then they beat Tampa Bay. It's always Tampa Bay. Boy, they got 2, but they could have had 5. They beat Tampa Bay 4-2. So Cale Makar comes in at number 4. You let me know if you think I have him too high or too low down below. Number 3. And cup number 3 for the Chicago Blackhawks is Duncan Keith in 2015. This might catch some people by surprise, but maybe after I'm done talking, you'll get it. 23 games played, 21 points, 31 minutes on ice average. No one is even close to this in the modern era of the NHL. He played more than half the game on a loaded Chicago Blackhawks team. That's why we got 1 for Toews, 1 for Kane, 1 for Keith. That's how good this team was. But I cannot undersell the importance of a number 1 defenseman and what Duncan Keith has done for defensemen in the NHL. Everybody is going to talk about Paul Coffey or Makar. There are going to be a ton of names that get added to the greatest of all time list. Duncan Keith may be the best playoff defenseman of all time, and he will be underrated if you can believe that. The criticality to this guy and this dynasty will never be understated for me. He was so important. There was a game he approached 50 minutes. I bet this guy would play the whole game if they would let him. His cardiovascular conditioning was through the roof. He wasn't the biggest guy, but he wasn't small. He wasn't weak, but he wasn't soft either. He could lay big hits when he needed to. He knew how to be dirty between the whistles at the right time too. He knew how to score at the right time. He knew how to break out. There wasn't a weakness in this guy's game when it came to the playoffs. So big time players make big time plays in big time games. That was the Chicago Blackhawks. Duncan Keith comes in at number 3 simply because you cannot replace a number 1 defenseman doing 31 minutes. They go ahead, they beat the Nashville Predators 4-2. They smoke Minnesota 4-0. They end up against Anaheim 4-3. Anaheim, another team that was this close later on in the 2010s, in the early 2010s. They didn't get it done either. 4-2 over who else? The Tampa Bay Lightning. Number 2 is going to piss off a lot of people on this channel. Why? Because the Edmonton Oilers are in the finals this year, and I have Connor McDavid as number 2. Are you nuts? Stick with me. I'll explain it. The greatest playoff performance likely ever. Connor McDavid in 2024, 42 points, second to only Wayne Gretzky, and the eras were so different. The fact any player did this is mind-blowing. 25 games, 42 points, 8 goals, 34 assists. I always believe assists are critically important. I will believe they are more important than goals. You cannot score a goal without playmakers like this. Connor McDavid sucks all the pressure into him. He moves the puck better than almost anybody in the league. The only one that has a claim to it is Leon Draisaitl, his teammate, his line mate, and they put goals in the net because of him. He is starting to become arguably the greatest player to ever play the game, but he will not be until he wins a Stanley Cup or 3. You need to win cups with the team you are drafted in. You need to lead your team to cups as a captain. You need to break records. Connor McDavid has done everything but win a cup. Will he do it in 2025? We'll see. He came within 1 goal of it this year, so he does not make number 1. If you do not recall, or if you did not watch the finals, Connor McDavid didn't even want the trophy. If the Edmonton Oilers lose in 2025 and they give it to Connor McDavid, he may break the trophy. And I don't blame him, and I don't think it's rude. He wanted the Stanley Cup. He didn't want the Conn Smythe Trophy. He is one of very few players right up there with Jean something, Jaguar. I can't remember Jaguar's first name right now, but he's right up there with Jaguar from Anaheim for the losing team that wins the Conn Smythe Trophy. Connor McDavid, Stanley Cup 2025. Will it happen? Let me know down below in the comments, or the Florida Panthers going to roll them. Meow, Big Cats. We'll see on Wednesday. And that leaves us with number 1. Who can beat the greatest modern playoff performance in history? Jonathan Quick. Let that sink in. 2012. 20 games played. 16 wins. Only 4 losses from 8th place. These guys decided to wake up and be great when it came to the playoffs. Was it a loaded team? For sure. Nobody saw the dominance that they had coming. If their second cup that they won, with Justin Williams being the Conn Smythe MVP, was the most exciting cup because it was 4-3, 4-3, game 7. This might arguably be the most boring Stanley Cup because of the sheer dominance that the LA Kings had. You were watching greatness. You were watching a legendary goalie performance. And this team was good. Captained by Dustin Brown, made in the same mold as Ryan O'Reilly, another guy on this list. Anze Kopitar, Justin Williams. This team had a lot of great players, but really when you think about these players and their names, they're a great team. As individuals, everybody would want a piece of them, but they really don't stand out like some of these players on this list, except Jonathan Quick. When you have a .946 save percentage and you only lose 4 games, dismantling everybody on your way to a final. They lost 2 games against Jersey. I still argue to this day, I still argue it. They could have swept Jersey. The only reason Jersey got 2 games out of it is LA I thought they played a little bit nervous in that. I think they shocked even themselves getting this far in the playoffs. Usually teams have to beat on the door for multiple years, get mentally ready and prepared to win a Stanley Cup. But the LA Kings just showed up and slobber knockered their way through everybody. They cleared them all like a video game. It was unbelievable to watch. So right now I have Jonathan Quick as number 1. If Connor McDavid continues doing what he does in 2025 and beyond, he will likely find his way to number 1 on most people and many people's list if he's not already there. But don't kid yourself. This performance was something special. They do not win a Stanley Cup without Jonathan Quick. The dynasty of the 2 Stanley Cups and the dominance they had for 5 to 6 years do not exist without Quick. And this is an absolutely legendary performance that is hard to compare against a number 1 center like Connor McDavid. So if you feel like flipping him, go ahead. But I think we saw sheer dominance from a goaltender at this point. That's why I have him number 1. You guys let me know if you agree down below with my list. I will catch you guys later this week. Oilers, Florida. We'll see who ends up taking it home. Talk to you guys later.